as I think about my career and the things I've done is having the instinct of thinking of how to anticipate the guest needs. And I think that's also correlated with what you saw with Chef Daniel Boulud, and you're going to hear later on with Chef Tyson, is just having that instinct of saying that what is next, what can be most enjoyable, holding tight to the fundamentals that we have and doing the research, seeing what's on the field and what's in the trenches. And oftentimes those instincts ring true. You're going to hear later again from Chef Tyson of working in the Michelin star restaurant and saying what he can do as in working inside a healthcare organization. Speaking of Chef Warner just a moment ago, and being a fundamentally trained chef and saying that I'm going to go back to school and get a PhD in mind body, and I'm going to train the next generation about food RX, or food as medicine. All those things are great, and it's awesome to have that passion and insight. But what's most important is to have the data, to help to become that change agent for those who are least resistant and naysayers of what's next and why it's so important to lead this evolution of food as medicine. Data Essential is that change agent, is that it really by their name, Data Essential or Data Central, really brings that to the table. And so I'm extremely proud to introduce to you guys today and to provide some real data of why this is so important and where we are in this fight is Marie Molde. Marie is a trend analyst at Data Essential, where with a strong background in food and business, holding a combined MBA and RD from Dominican University, Marie brings Data Essential a unique culinary perspective, health-driven point of view. Restaurant chains and suppliers have relied on Marie's expertise in menu and product development. For the years, she has helped food service and retail companies excel in better for you innovation. Marie has appeared in national TV programs on CBS and NBC, stories from growth of the plant-based eating, and is quoted by major media companies, including BuzzFeed, Washington Post, New York Times, and others. Marie, I'm really looking forward to seeing you dive in and providing some information of really where we are. What are the customers and the new generations? How are they eating? What are they spending their money? And where should we be focusing on? Marie, take it away.
Yes, excellent. Well, thank you, Chef Carey, and thank you all for the opportunity to share these insights with you this morning. I would like to begin with this chronology right here that really shows how consumers' definition of healthy is changing all the time. So if we think back, say, really 40 years now into the 1980s, 90s, into the early 2000s, the focus of what was healthy back then was kind of this notion of managing our weight and eating things like Special K or Snackwells. You saw a lot of brands like that. Like, we really had this honed in focus on weight management. And not that weight management is not important anymore, of course it still is, but in the early 2000s, we saw this shift away from so much focus on managing our weight into this interest in what we call feel-good foods. So this was when consumers were looking for healthy foods, they were looking for terms like natural or sustainable or organic. And if they saw those on a food, even if it was something like an organic cheeseburger or a sustainable bacon or something, that felt to them like a healthy choice. And then more recently, really around like 2015, 16 or so, we've shifted into this new definition of healthy, where consumers are looking for functional foods. So foods that do something for us. They go beyond just satiety or filling a craving for us. They need to do something additional, like mental wellness or gut health, or make our skin beautiful or our hair beautiful, or antioxidants and things like that. And then more recently, we've also seen another shift into this notion of personalized nutrition. And that can be interpreted a couple ways. So we really want, for one thing, functional foods to be personal to us as individuals, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But we also have these personalized nutrition tests available now where you can send in a saliva sample and get back a reading or a report about what specific nutrients your own body needs for your activity level and your lifestyle. So seeing that, how healthy has changed very much so over the past 4 decades, or really what healthy means to us is always evolving. Now we're in that age of personalized and functional, and we're also seeing now more than ever that consumers believe that food is medicine. So we can see here in this stat, 83% of the population believes that food is medicine. So that is really awesome to see. We also see this real interest right now in mental wellness. And I think this is so positive. And what we saw in our research at Data Central, for years, we would ask the question of, when you think of what's important to creating your overall sense of well-being, is it physical health? Is it mental wellness? Is it being around family? What are those important things? It was physical health and kind of like fitness that always rose to the top with consumers. Having a sense of well-being means I'm physically healthy and I'm fit. But finally, in recent years, I think for the first time last year, we saw mental wellness rated as equally important with consumers, that to have an overall sense of well-being, we need to feel both mentally and physically healthy and well. And to build on that, 87% of consumers today, and even more so with millennials, say they're at least somewhat likely to purchase foods and beverages that are oriented toward improving our mental health. So we'll see some examples of those in a second. Now, this curve here is something Data Central is very well known for. This is called our menu adoption cycle. And what this is a trend curve that shows really like the life cycle of any category of food and beverage. So here, I guess we've come a little bit outside of food and beverage with this curve. This is our health and wellness terms menu adoption cycle. So what this means is those first two areas, the green and the orange color, those are called inception and adoption. And those are the areas where trends begin. So when you think about when something is new and novel to us, maybe in the context of food and beverage, these are items that are found at farmers markets or really gourmet stores. And then as they move up the curve in that purple area, they begin to be found at like chain restaurants and chain grocery stores. And then that brown category is when they're found everywhere. And it doesn't mean in those later two stages that these things aren't trendy anymore. It just means that they're well known, they're oftentimes well loved. So the later two stages, the purple and the brown, are what drive volume opportunities with consumers. And the first two stages, the green and the orange, are what drive excitement. So in the realm of health and wellness terms, things like nootropics and adaptogens and Ayurvedic items are appearing really early stage right now. And as we move up the curve, you start to see things like sober curious, this idea of trying to avoid alcohol or being interested in avoiding alcohol. Moving up the curve further, high protein, superfood, and then finally in ubiquity are things like heart healthy and low carb. So I wanted to include this here just to give a picture of the overall world of health and wellness, what's going on as far as early stage and later stage trends right now. At Data Central, we also manage a menus database where we track what's going on restaurant menus. And this is really important, even if you don't work in food service or care about restaurants, because oftentimes trends start at restaurants and then they trickle into other areas of the world, like retail and cafeterias and things like that. So the fastest growing functional ingredients on restaurant menus today, a lot of them are oriented toward our mental wellness, like CBD oil is the top trending item. It has exponential growth over the past couple years. We know that CBD is really marketed toward helping us with stress and helping our body to relax. Collagen is also trending, and then also some types of mushrooms like a lion's mane mushroom, which is purported to help with brain health as well. This is one other menu adoption cycle. This is for superfoods. So we'll talk a lot about different superfoods, but again, the later stage superfoods that are quite well known now are things like walnuts and Brussels sprouts and honey, whereas the earlier stage trends, we're starting to see watermelon seeds. So I was at a plant conference last week in New York City, and there was a booth there with high protein watermelon seed powder. And then also a number of types of fruits are trending in early stage right now with superfoods. So breadfruit, maki berries, choke berries, tart cherries, and dragon fruit are a couple examples. So building on that, fruits are always something consumers look to as something with very much a health halo. Trending superfruits right now, so dragon fruit is the #1 trending fruit on restaurant menus. So it has that beautiful pink color and it's very Instagrammable. Calamansi, which is a type of Asian citrus, is trending. Mangosteen also comes from Southeast Asia, very good sweet flavor with that. And then a couple fruits that have a beautiful color, like a wild blueberry or a guava or a blood orange, are also trending at restaurants, meaning we expect to see them in more categories in the near future. And here's a couple retail examples that illustrate these trends. So this is a beverage called Recess. I think their tagline for this product is, "We canned a feeling." And they say that this product helps you adapt. It's made with adaptogens. It helps you manage stress. And it has superfruits built into these beverages too. So pomegranate and hibiscus and peach and other fruit flavors. This is another product that's kind of in your face with its name here. It's called Chill the F Out. It's made with cacao and some medicinal mushrooms. It has a peppermint flavor. They say just take a teaspoon of this and stir it in your beverage or your dessert, and it will help you to relax. And then this is my favorite example. I live in Seattle, and this is a great plant-based ice cream shop that we have here. And every month they release new flavors. And this is an ice cream shop, so it's very indulgent. It's a dessert operator, but they incorporate a lot of adaptogens and things in their ice cream. So the top one in this sundae here is a strawberry flavor that's made with a vegan collagen, and it says it will help boost your mood if you eat that. And the middle flavor there is made with pistachios, and they mention in their description that pistachios have natural melatonin and that this ice cream will help you enhance the vividness and recall of your dreams. So if ice cream wasn't tempting enough, that's a little bit even more tempting there. We saw Sober Curious on the health and wellness menu adoption cycle earlier. So that's the idea of limiting alcohol. But there's also a bit of a trend going on now of consumers who are curious about moving away from caffeine. So I might be wrong on these stats, but I think it's something like 80% of Americans drink coffee. But there are more and more consumers kind of looking away from that and wanting to try alternatives. So chicory coffee is one. We track all of these items in a database. We find today that 16% of consumers have tried chicory coffee, and that's even more so when you look at specific groups like Whole Foods consumers or people who shop at Whole Foods are even more likely to have tried this, for example. Here's a specific brand of herbal coffee. This one is called Rasa. So they have a lot of different blends made with mushrooms and different adaptogens. And they say, you know, this will give you a perk in the morning, but it won't have to have that letdown or any of the negative anxiety jitters that might come with caffeine. So overall, 40% of consumers today tell us they're interested in increasing their consumption of superfoods. So the most menued superfoods, this list is probably not surprising. It's things like mushrooms and beans and honey and avocado. If we look at the trending superfruits or superfoods, excuse me, on menus, it's a little bit different here. It's zoodles, so zucchini noodles, grass-fed butter, cauliflower rice, turmeric and matcha, different things that come along with some specific diets like keto or paleo are sort of reflected here. Uh, Restaurants are also responding with a lot of healthy innovation lately. So there was a lot of comfort foods and things during the pandemic, but now we're seeing superfruit smoothies, cauliflower rice bowls, zoodles in dishes, and ancient grains. That yellow score that you see here. So we have consumers rate all of these items, and we say a score above 70 is good and above 90 is great. So you can see all of these scored quite well with consumers. So lifestyle diets that are trending right now. So plant-based is the #1 trending diet. And we'll talk more about that in a second. Keto and vegan and paleo and high protein are all also trending with consumers. Free from claims on menus are also growing. So non-GMO is growing at triple-digit rate across restaurants. The type of consumer who's most interested in non-GMO tends to be a millennial, but there is interest across all groups. And then you see also nut-free, dairy-free, gluten-free growing. And we do see consumers self-reporting of allergies growing year over year too. So there are more consumers looking to alternatives to cow's milk or peanut butter, for example. Allergies are always growing. And then animal welfare terms are also trending. So humanely raised, pasture-raised, cage-free. Expect to see even more of those terms at restaurants and at retail into the future. And here's some restaurant examples using these terms. So we see wild caught menued with seafood. We see sustainable and organic menued with coffee, paleo, low calorie. And you can see again, all of these are receiving great scores from consumers. Wanted to take a quick second to touch on immunity. So immunity was talked about a lot during the pandemic. We found that 1/3 of consumers say they focused more on immunity following the pandemic, and 1/3 say they didn't. So just to mention that it's not everyone who's looking for more immunity benefits, but it's about 1 in 3 people following COVID who's interested in that. And to wrap up, I just wanted to highlight a bit more about plant-based. We saw that was such a big trend. So right now in our country, most of us are meat eaters, and that's reflected in the blue bar here. That's stats of the general population. But about 1/3 of the general population is a meat limiter in some way. So they're a flexitarian or pescatarian or vegetarian. And that's even higher for Gen Z consumers. So 35% of today's late teens, early 20s limit meat in their diet in some way. We also see this reflected in consumption desires. So what we see here is not a lot of people want to increase meat in their diet, but most people are looking to increase plant-based foods and especially fruits and vegetables. We also see a shift away from dairy. So 15% of people say they want to increase dairy in their diet, but that is down since last year. Whereas 1/4 of us are looking to increase our consumption of plant-based dairy, like almond milk and coconut milk and oat milk. And that's up 5% since last year. And we have seen a lot of plant-based alternatives come on the market in the past year. So we wanted to understand from consumers, are they more interested in whole food plant-based products, or are they more interested in processed alternatives that are meant to mimic like a beef or a milk? And most consumers say they want that whole food plant-based alternative. So there are a lot of restaurants who are accommodating that. This is a restaurant in DC that menus only whole vegetable and bean tacos and Mexican dishes. Lots of vegetables are coming as the star on menus. Cauliflower is a big one, jackfruit and mushrooms as well. Burgers and fried rice are growing. I'm kind of buzzing through this because I know I'm over time. So health is the key driver, driving consumers toward plant-based, but the environment is also a big driver. We do believe that the choices we make can help the health of our planet. So 65% of people think we can mitigate climate change if we eat differently. This is the laundry list of health and immunity benefits we want from plant-based foods. Supporting our digestive health and our microbiome is the main one, but it all does boil down to craveability. So for any of these trends to take off, plant-based and anything else, it has to be delicious and craveable. So that's why it's so important. We have chefs with us today, and chefs leading our discussion, because it boils down to that. These trends have to be tasty to move forward. So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marie. You did not disappoint. Those are some fascinating stats, and is absolutely reassuring to me as well as many of the other presenters. And I'm hoping that it inspired the new generation of chefs and food service leaders to see that it is not a kiss of death to say that food can be healthy and taste good, and that the customers will not receive it. It is not that you can't make money and if you're to serve healthy food or food that is good for you. And it is to not only to be responsible, but to respond to the customer needs. Before we go on to the next two presenters, I do want to make a couple comments. Is the response from the restaurants I thought was quite notable, of how they're utilizing superfoods and plant-based diets inside their meals, and how they converted from where they were in the comfort food stage during the COVID, where we needed that at that time. And now it's about going back to business. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.